Hello, everyone. This is Father Son Galaxy. Thank you for joining us. I am Kerwin. This is Keith.
Hello.
Hey. So, all right. I've been waiting for this book all year long. Okay. This is called 40 Stories Celebrating 40 Years of Return to Jedi, A Certain Point of View. All right. This book dropped in August. And from that moment on, I read them, reread them. I listened to the audio books. And I've had plans to put this together for a very long time to talk about our top 10 stories.
And it's come to fruition.
Right. And here we are. Right. So we've done it. We have top 10. We're going to get into it. All right. So thank you for joining us. Now,
considering the fact that YouTube is probably timeless, by the time you're watching this, it's probably like 2050. So.
Oh, I hope not. Okay. All right.
I promise you it didn't take us like 30.
Okay. It didn't take us that long.
It didn't take us 27 years to make this.
No, exactly. All right, so we have it. So before we get into it, we just want to thank you all for if you're listening or watching us. If you are new to the channel and you have not subscribed, please subscribe to the channel. Hit the like button. You can
see more of this content.
Hit the subscribe button. So
subscribe.
By the way, this is going to be a spoiler review. We're going to be talking in depth with some of these stories. So if you have not read the book, please go ahead and read it. Or if you are okay with knowing what happens, at least with 10 of the stories, all right, we're ready to get in. We're going to dive into it. Before we get to the top 10, though, okay, we're going to talk about 2 honorable mentions. So
we're not going to get into them.
Yeah.
But I'd just like to bring them up.
Yes. So let's do 2 honorable mentions. So let's go. We have
Ending Protocol by Hannah Whitten. A stormtrooper turns herself in after the rebels' victory in the Battle of Endor.
Okay, all right, that's one. And then the second honorable mention?
Super Trouble by Laura Pohl. A very funny story with the stormtrooper who drinks plenty of calf and maintains a log of complaints of workplace harassment and plans to escape the Imperial Academy.
All right, there you go. Those are 2 very well-written stories, but they didn't make our top 10, all right? So
I'm sure that trooper's got a galactic lawsuit.
Yeah, this trooper was not very happy with being in the academy, so I think it was he wanted out immediately. So especially when they didn't have enough calf, he couldn't function. So, all right, so those 2 stories did not make it into our top 10. What did make it? Here we go, starting with number 10.
Everyone's a Critic by Sarah Jen Marsh. Salacious Crumb meets Jabba the Hutt for the first time and establishes a relationship to keep him happy and keep himself alive. His story comes to an end on Jabba's sail barge and Return of the Jedi.
All right, so this was a good one. This is the introduction to Salacious Crumb. Of course, if you've seen the movie, you know who this is. It's a monkey lizard.
He's a little bit salacious.
Yes, he is salacious. He is a Kowakian monkey. That's the species.
They're kind of ugly,
right? And you saw him; he was never too far away from Jabba the Hutt. He sat right next to his tail.
Yeah, that laugh was never too far away from him.
And that cackle that he had, it was ridiculous. So he was a stowaway. Salacious was a stowaway on Jabba's ship, and he was found. And Jabba was not having it. Actually, Jabba didn't even like Salacious Crumb, and he threatened to feed this monkey to the Sarlacc. But you know what he did? What was very smart on the monkey's part is he tried as best as he could to make Jabba laugh. As long as he can make Jabba laugh, that jolly laugh, he felt, okay, I'm in. All right, all I got to do is just entertain the big guy, keep him happy, and then everything will be okay. Up until the point when Luke shows up and, we know what happened.
R2-D2 just roasted Salacious.
Yes, right, that shock, that jolt. Yeah.
I said,
and you know what was interesting? In the film, we didn't exactly see what happened to Salacious Crumb. We just assumed that since he was still on the ship and the ship exploded, that he was gone. But the story goes into a little more with what exactly happened. And it had a very abrupt ending, which I thought made the story quite interesting. But we now know for sure the fate of Salacious Crumb. All right, so that is...
He became a salacious mule.
Yes. and hey...
Sarlacc will be feasting.
Speaking of Sarlacc, more about the Sarlacc later. Okay, so that's number 10. Number 9.
Reputation by Tara Sim. So this references the events of Marvel Comics' War of the Bounty Hunters, which was back in 2022. After losing Han first in Carbonite, Boba returned to Hutt's palace with Han Solo as the prize. He hangs around to watch the Jedi and the rebels wreak havoc, bring down the most feared criminal on Tatooine.
Now, this is very interesting. Now, we've talked, I love this series. We talked about it with Chris Ryan's Charles Soule created a trilogy of Crimson Dawn, and the first series of the trilogy was called War of the Bounty Hunters. And we're not going to go into any details as to what happened because we have an episode based on that series. So please check it out. You can listen to it on your favorite podcast or you can watch it on YouTube. But basically, Boba Fett loses Han Solo, all right? And he had to find a way to get Solo back. He did. We know he did because we saw him Return of the Jedi. Han Solo and Carbonite was hanging in Jabba's palace. But why did Boba Fett hang around? I mean, he got there and gave Jabba what he wanted, but he hung around. He stayed. But why did he stay? Well, so apparently he and Dengar, another bounty hunter, were having a conversation. They were talking about, okay, well, you see what's going on, right? You know, you got Han Solo, this huge person of the rebellion hanging in Carbonite in Jabba's palace, and you don't think the rebels are going to come after him? So they place a bet to see if Luke Skywalker and the rebels are going to come after Han Solo and Boba Fett. Well, not Boba Fett, and come after Jabba the Hutt. So he hung around to see what happens, and he sure did see what happened.
Boba Fett.
He probably
Boba Fett.
Now he probably regrets hanging around, but that's why he was still there. He stayed.
I wonder if Han and Boba met again after the Sarlacc pit. I'm sure Boba would have some kind words for Han.
Yeah, how about that? That's a good point. Now, that was never touched upon in the Boba Fett series.
Considering that they both live at around the same time period
That's
now.
true. That's true.
And they're both on galactic adventures.
Right, and we know that Boba Fett survived the Sarlacc, right? We saw that.
Yeah, now that we've understood that part.
Yeah. All right, so that is number 9, Reputation by Tara Sim. Number 8 of our 40 stories celebrating 40 years of Return of the Jedi.
Return of the Wills by Tom Engelberger.
All right.
So it's 2 screenwriters having a comedic banter over creating Return of the Jedi's opening crawl.
Yeah, this was a very funny story. And what made this story interesting, well, first of all, it's very creative, but it really had nothing to do with, well, I can't say that. It does have a lot to do. It's
not set in the story.
It's not, right. It's not something that happened in the story, but it's actually 2 writers preparing to write the opening crawl of Return of the Jedi. Now, well, you should know if you're a fan of Return of the Jedi, it was written by 2 screenwriters, right? It was George Lucas and Lawrence Kasdan. So, and we know this story is not true. This is just something made up by Tom Engelberger, but I couldn't help but picture George Lucas is the one that's writing the crawl, and then Lawrence Kasdan comes in and starts criticizing everything that George Lucas is writing on the page. So first of all, the original title, if you know the history of this of this film, the original title was supposed to be Revenge of the Jedi, right? So here you go. You have this writer writing Revenge of the Jedi, and then the other writer says, Revenge of the Jedi? That doesn't make sense. Jedi don't take revenge. You got to change it. And so the writer says, okay, we'll change it to Return of the Jedi. And the other writer says, okay, I guess that'll do. So that's what this is. It's this banter that's going on with these 2 writers. And then there was actually, I don't know if you know about this, Keith, but there was a deleted scene of a sandstorm that took place right after the explosion of Jabba's sail barge. I don't even know why it was written in the screenplay, and they actually filmed it, but I'm so glad they took it out because it had nothing to do with the story.
That feels irrelevant.
Yeah, very irrelevant. And then if you continue on, there's a little clip in the story, when we talk about the crawl, and it says, little does Luke know that the Galactic Empire has secretly begun construction on an armored space station even more powerful than the dreaded Death Star. And the other writers go, wait, hold up. What?
Another Death Star? They're going to build another one of these?
Yes, it was. Yeah. So I thoroughly enjoy that story, but it's number 8. All right. So we got more stories that are actually even better than that one, but we we love that story. That was pretty funny, and that was very creative. Tom Engelberger. He's written some books that you've read before, right?
Origami Yoda and whatnot.
There you go. Right. So he is a professional Star Wars writer. Okay. That was number 8. Moving on. Number 7.
No Contingency by Fran Wilde. Senator Mon Mothma sees up close and personal the casualties of war and honors the spies who risked their lives to retrieve Empire intelligence on the second Death Star.
Now, this is very interesting because we know, we could spend an hour or 2 hours talking about Mon Mothma, this character that was actually first seen in Return of the Jedi. This character is more relevant now, 40 years later, than it was when we first saw the character. So
I'd say so.
Yeah. So this was interesting. So this is a story that's leading up to the meeting that Mon Mothma has with the Rebel fleet, along with General Medine and Admiral Akbar. So apparently there's these spies that are out on a mission. They're trying to find information on the new Death Star. She gets a signal from a courier droid, right? So the courier droid apparently has a message for Mon Mothma. And inside the droid is a data card. Now, of course, Mon Mothma wants to know, okay, what is this information? Why is this so important? We need to get this data card. Now, here's the thing. She has to make sure to get to it as soon as possible, or else the droid is set to destruct, right? So that's one of the contingencies, I guess. So if the droid has ever been found, let's say by the Empire, the droid knows that that droid would have to self-destruct so that the Empire does not get the information that's needed. Okay. And that goes for the rebels as well. So there's a race against time for Mon Mothma to find this droid and the data card. All right. And then she does find the droid and gets the data card. And on the data card is information about the new Death Star. All right. So Mon Mothma retrieves this data, and she goes and makes the speech. You see this very important speech that she made in the film. And she says that, this is the Emperor has made a critical error. The data found by the Bothan spies pinpoint the exact location of the Empire's new battle station. Most important of all, we've learned that the Emperor himself is personally overseeing the final stages of the construction of the Death Star. And then the last line where she says, many Bothans have died. I mean, you just saw the look on her face, how disappointed and sad she was that, the sacrifices that these rebels made to get this information that's so important for them to survive. And they lost their lives.
I'm not going to lie. That's like the only Mon Mothma line I remember.
Yeah.
Out of that whole speech.
Yeah, because the way it was delivered, I mean, it was just so powerful. Many Bothans have died to get us this information, right? Yeah. So she made sure to let the people know that.
Kind of sad.
It is. But, it was...
At least we don't have to watch it like Rogue One.
Yeah, it wasn't in vain. At least we know that the rebel spies, they got the information that the rebellion need to defeat the Emperor and the second Death Star eventually, right? So that was pretty cool. So I really enjoyed that story. So that is No Contingency by Fran Wilde. That is number 7. All right. Oh, and then, by the way, there's one thing I want to say about this story. What was interesting about No Contingency is they never mentioned the name Bothan. They just said spies, which I don't know why. But it would have been nice if we knew, okay, well, I'm assuming that when the storyline says spies, they mean Bothan spies. But
what even are Bothan spies?
Right, yeah. So
they never explained it in the 40 years since that movie came out.
It would have been nice if the story would have, tell us that these are the Bothan spies. Who are they? Where are they from?
Are they from a planet called Bothan or something?
Yeah, right. We don't know. So that's the only thing. But we know it has to be the same spies because this is the speech that Mothma gives right after finding the data.
So the story edited the speech?
Well, no, it didn't edit the speech, but it just didn't bring up the. Oh, so the last.
So that'd be editing the speech.
Well, okay, so they left out the last line where Mon Mothma says many Bothans had died to get us this information. That line was not included in the story.
That's different.
Yeah. But everything else that.
I kind of forgot about that part.
Yeah, everything that led up to it, that speech that she made up to that point was in the book, was in the story. So, yeah. All right, number 7. Moving on to number 6.
My Mouth Never Closes by Jane Anders.
Okay.
That's kind of true for me.
Yes.
The Sarlacc pit speaks. The Sarlacc expresses his concerns for all of the people that just continually fall into his mouth. He cannot close his mouth. And this is not what the Sarlacc wanted for itself, and it just wants to be left alone.
Yes. Who knew that the Sarlacc had a voice?
Or feelings.
Yeah. This was a well-written story, and I talk about creativity. Giving the Sarlacc a voice, and expressing himself because people are not listening to him. Turns out the Sarlacc is a vegetarian.
Exactly.
Doesn't even like meat. And then he just constantly...
They should have been chucking carrots at his goal instead of Boba Fett's armor.
Exactly. And they constantly throw these bodies, and armor and whatever else into the mouth of the Sarlacc. And it's just like, it's just turning the Sarlacc stomach or whatever it is, and it's just not working for the Sarlacc, and he's forced to eat the food that is not healthy, is not good for him, and now he's telling them, stop putting these people in my mouth. I don't like it.
I don't like this.
I have a dietary restriction. I have problem digesting one body after the other, and one especially.
I can't digest humans. I'll eat you next if you don't give me some good food.
Right, and then one especially, the guy with the armor, that was tough to chew on. Boba Fett, which is why Boba Fett, wasn't digested, because the Sarlacc just rejected the armor and the body, and he got out. However,
Sarlacc just legitimately barfed him up.
Yeah, right. And then it ends not well for the pit, because we know, if you saw the book of Boba Fett, Boba took revenge on the Sarlacc, right? He came back for the Sarlacc, and we know what happens after that. But that was a very funny story.
Bye.
Yes, My Mouth Never Closes. That is number 6 on our list. Number 5. We're halfway there already.
Yeah.
Okay, number 5.
We're halfway there.
Living on a prayer every day. We live.
I sure have. From a Certain Point of View by Alex Jennings. So, Obi-Wan is preparing to explain to Luke the reason why he kept his relationship to Vader a secret. So it's basically the extended version of the conversation Luke and Obi-Wan had on Dagobah after Yoda became one with the Force.
Now, what I like about these stories in the book is that when they use the dialogue from the film to make it feel more authentic, and they did this in this story. So really, to me, it was an extended version of Luke and Obi-Wan having that conversation on Dagobah right after Yoda dies. And
are these stories canon?
Yeah, I would say so. It would be canon.
Even the one with the writers arguing over the opening crawl?
That's a very good point. That's a very good question. I don't know. I don't know. I'm assuming
that would mean that all of Star Wars is orchestrated if that were canon.
That's a very good question. I guess we would have to ask.
I would assume that story's not canon.
The story editors.
I'll ask Tom Engelberger.
Oh, there you go. Let's talk to Tom. Like, is your story canon? But who knows? I just to, going back to that story, Tom. I have one of the books. Those 3 big coffee table books that I have, like The Making of Return to Jedi.
The big books.
So, yeah. Right, I have a book for each of the 3 films, the original trilogy. And I can confirm in the book, according to the book, that there were conversations that George and Lawrence Kasdan and the director, Richard Marquand, had about the dialogue. So there is some truth to it. And we do know that it was true that the original title was called Revenge of the Jedi, and then it was changed to Return of the Jedi. So there's some truth to it, with a little bit of humor. So we can...
Well, I would assume it's embellished.
Okay. I like that word. All right. Okay. All right, let's go back. So we're at A Certain Point of View. So I was saying it's an extended version of that meeting with Luke and Obi-Wan. And Obi-Wan has been standing there waiting to approach Luke and didn't know exactly when to do it or what to say, because he knew he had questions. Luke was going to have questions from him. He had some explaining to do to Luke, right? Because
you done goofed up, Obi-Wan.
Exactly, and Obi-Wan was not upfront with him from the very beginning, explaining to him that Vader is his father. We never told him that, And he had to come up with an explanation as to why he never told Luke the truth about his father.
Wasn't a great one, but he tried.
Well, he tried, but as far as Obi-Wan felt, he really took the time to think about what he wanted to say to Luke before he said it, how he wanted to say it. There was a lot of things that were on his mind. He had to imagine this. I mean, he had to explain to Luke, okay, why did you tell him about his father? He had to let Luke know that he had a sibling, and he had to, make sure that Luke knew that he still had to face his father and the Emperor, or else they win. So there was a lot that had to be discussed in that storyline. And Obi-Wan, and this is the story about Obi-Wan preparing himself to talk to Luke. And then one of the things that he said to Luke at the very end, that is not in the movie, obviously, but he just wanted to stop and he just stopped and just looked at Luke and just said how good it was to see him. Something that was so personal and probably something very difficult for Obi-Wan to say, but he wanted to make sure that, that his love for Luke is still there. And he was just so happy to see him, and that he had the confidence. Obi-Wan had the confidence that Luke would make the right decisions and do the right thing to save himself and to save the rebellion. And turns out he did. Luke made the right decision.
Yeah, speaking of Obi-Wan, you know what's crazy?
What's that?
Obi-Wan in the time of Kenobi was actually younger than Ewan McGregor, and they still had to add makeup and wrinkles to make him look closer to Alec Guinness's portrayal.
Yeah, well, so you're saying that Alec Guinness, the age that Alec Guinness was when he played Obi-Wan Kenobi, is about the same age as Ewan McGregor now?
What?
Is that
No,
what you're saying?
I'm saying that when Ewan... all right, so at the time Kenobi takes place,
Yes.
Ewan McGregor would have been older than Obi-Wan. The actor's older than the characters, what I'm saying.
I'm not sure about that. Maybe I'm still misunderstanding what you're saying, but when Alec Guinness portrayed Obi-Wan Kenobi, he was 65, I believe.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. But Ewan is only in his 50s.
Yeah.
Okay.
So.
Yeah. Okay.
Obi-Wan.
Yeah.
Obi-Wan Kenobi at the time of the Kenobi show.
Yeah.
Which was about 10 years before A New Hope.
A New Hope, okay.
Ewan McGregor would have been older than Obi-Wan at that current time.
I see. Okay.
So they still had to add all kinds of makeup to make him look older and closer to Alec Guinness, because after those 10 years, he would have gray hair and different robes and stuff.
I see. Okay. All right.
So they had to try to close the gap.
I see. Okay. I honestly thought, I mean, that's your opinion, but, my opinion, I thought Ewan McGregor was playing his age as Obi-Wan Kenobi, because like you said, it was 10 years.
More or less.
Right. Yeah. So it is, like you said, 10 years before A New Hope. So Ewan is at the right age of what Alec Guinness would be 10 years later playing Obi-Wan in A New Hope.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Maybe we're saying the same thing. Okay. Got it. All right.
Yeah.
Okay. Yes. Okay. All right. Yeah, Keith, you throw me for a loop, man. It's like, man,
I threw myself for a loop.
I am not good with timelines, so that's why I need a book, which we have. Thank you, Clayton Sandell.
Thank you, Clayton.
Yeah. So we have that book. All right. So that is number 5. All right. From a Certain Point of View by Alex Jennings. Okay. All right. We're ready to move. Anything else you want to talk about with number 5?
No.
Okay. All right. Let's move on to number 4.
Kickback by K. Arsenault Rivera. There's a pun in that kickback. It's the story of Jabba's security officer who was brave enough to try to fight Luke over the Sarlacc pit, and let's just say Luke used his force kick ability, and he went tumbling into the mouth of the Sarlacc that doesn't even like eating people.
That's true, right? Yeah. Now, okay, this has been talked about for years for Star Wars fans. It has
There's a Wikipedia page all about the force kick.
It's been a meme. It's been made fun of over the years. And
you know what memes are?
Boy, if you've seen the movie, you know the scene I'm talking about. But if you wanted to just stop it and freeze it, if you go to Disney, yes, if you go to Disney Plus and you stop it at 33 minutes and 48 seconds, you will see this kick. All right, so here's.
If they ever re-release Return of the Jedi in theaters, when that scene comes up, I'm just gonna yell "Force kick" as loud as I can.
Right. Yeah, and then I guess there's nothing you can do to fix it. But here's what happened. All right, so let's set the scene up. So this is at the point where Luke is walking the plank, and he tells Jabba, "Free us or die," and then Jabba says, "Move them into position." And
Jabba basically said, "Oh."
Luke gives R2 the signal, and then he jumps and he grabs onto the plank and he does the somersault and he grabs a lightsaber and it ignites a green lightsaber and he's going at it and he's wrecking havoc and taking people out. There's this cell barge that comes across, right? And starts firing at Luke and Han and Chewie, everybody on that barge. So what Luke does is he jumps from the one cell barge to the other.
And force kicks the dude.
Right, okay.
His foot didn't force connect with the guy's face.
Right, so here's how this story
The connection was spotty.
Okay, this is how the story plays. The story is about the person who gets force kicked by Luke Skywalker. All right, so they gave this person a name. He's called Scion. He is a family man. All right. Now, if you see it in the film, he's the guy wearing a helmet.
Helmets.
Well, right. You're right. They're wearing helmets. Like he's this Jabba security guard, and they're wearing helmets. So
similar to what Lando has.
Prior to this moment, he is trying to get the courage up to, well, he doesn't know what's going to happen this day. Usually, it's routine, it's pretty quiet, things don't go wrong, and he's thinking about seeing his family again. He's been away from his family for a very long time. He has a spouse at home who he's been waiting to see for so long, and he's just looking forward to seeing his kids and his family. And it just doesn't happen for him.
Oh, God.
So this is when all stuff breaks loose on the cell barge. And like I said, Luke is coming at them, and then they're going after Luke. And you see there are three of them in that helmet who try to surround Luke, right? The one in the middle is the one that approaches. He gets the closest to Luke Skywalker. He's at a point where he says, "I'm so close. I got him. I got him right where I want him. He is right there." And all of a sudden, he gets kicked. He gets kicked in the face, and he goes, "Ah!" He loses his balance, and he falls into the Sarlacc pit. That's the moment where that force kick. So he is a person on the receiving end of that kick up. So what happened was when they were choreographing the scene, Mark
Hamill was going for safety and didn't want to actually break his nose.
So you want to make sure that when he kicks the actor or the stunt person, that he was far enough away that he didn't really hit the person in the face.
But he miscalculated.
But he missed him by so far.
He missed that kick so far you could see daylight from all angles.
He missed by a mile. This kick was nowhere near the guy. But it
wasn't even near his. It wasn't even near his arm.
Yeah, but it was just so funny that this was a wonderful story where they gave this person who got kicked in the face a name, and unfortunately, like I said, he was a family man.
I don't appreciate that backstory now.
Yeah, well, he was a family man, and he didn't get a chance to see his family again. Look, that's how it goes. Oh man! So that was.
Let's talk about something fun.
All right, so that was number 4. That's Kickback by Kay Alternate Rivera. Alternate.
All right.
That name. Okay. Number 3.
Fancy Man by Phil Szostak. It's Max Rebo displays the art of escape and trying to find the way to survive the destruction of Jabba's sail barge, while also trying to catch a rolling drum.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So. We know the story about Max Rebo. Something this what's the species? I can't remember the species right at the moment. I
blue.
Don't. Yeah, Orderlin, right? Orderlin or something like that. All right, so he's blue. Okay, that's the species. Orderlin.
Blue.
So he plays with his feet, right?
Yeah.
Keith. All right, he plays with his feet. Anyway, so he is a keyboard player for Jabba's band. All right, for lack of a better word, keyboard. And he was hired by Jabba to, hey, well, he was hired by
Cy Soodles?
no, the major domo.
Oh, Bib Fortuna.
Bib Fortuna.
Yeah, what I want.
Hey, Max Rebo, hey, you want to come work for you want to come work with Jabba? And so, he didn't really want to, but he went anyway. So it turns out that this guy, this Max Rebo knows how to escape death every single time. And I don't know how he does it, but he just ends up finding a spot or an escape route. So he actually managed to survive the sail barge explosion. All right. And if you recall, it happened again years later when Max is now working for Garza Fwip at her establishment. Right. And then he dials up.
Garza Fwip got flipped.
He calls Garza and says, Garza, I'm not feeling well today. All right. I'm not going to be in. She said, are you sure? And he said, yeah, I'm just not going to be in. The same day that he decides not to come into work, boom, that's when the establishment goes up in flames. So once again,
I love how Max Rebo just has his sixth sense.
Either this guy knows when trouble's going to happen before it happens, or he is just a very lucky orderly. Blue man. Okay. So that's the story.
He's a very lucky blue.
Yeah. So a very funny story once again by Phil Solstack. That's the number 3 story. Fancy Man. All right. So we're down to our top two. Yeah. Okay. So what do we got?
We have The Brotherhood by Mike Chen.
Oh, look at that. All right. So The Brotherhood by Mike Chen. Okay. If you recall, Mike Chen is actually the author of a book called Brotherhood, featuring Obi-Wan Kenobi and Anakin Skywalker. Yeah. Now, this is a very, very well-written story. It's also very emotional. So now, let's think about this. So it starts off with Luke trying to save his father, right? Trying to get him off the Death Star. And this is at the point where Vader asked him to remove his mask, and he wanted to see his son's face, see him face to face, take a last look at him. So the mask is gone, and it's just Anakin. And his last words to Luke was, "You're right. Tell your sister you were right." All right. And then he transitions. The story is about his transition from, living, breathing to the spirit, right? So he runs into Obi-Wan Kenobi, his master. And Anakin is very angry. Of course, he was not ready to go. When he has this conversation with Obi-Wan, Obi-Wan explains to him, here's what happened. Here's the facts of, what you did. And Anakin couldn't believe how evil he was. So he really sat back and thought about, I wish I can go back and change things. I still have so much to do. Is there any way that I can go back to that life and fix everything that I've done? I've been very evil to people. And Obi-Wan says, well, no, you can't. It's what's done is done. But look at the legacy that you've left for yourself. You now have a son who saved your life, who saved the rebellion. You also have a daughter who's a princess who will one day become a senator, right? And a great leader. Yeah, and a great leader, right? Or currently a leader of the rebellion and then become a leader of the resistance. So you've left the legacy. They're going to carry on your legacy, okay? So he had to convince Anakin that, you've done all that you can. Don't carry the burden of what happened when you were alive, and just look and see for yourself the celebration. And then it takes place at the celebration on Endor, where the 3 Force ghosts appear. You got Obi-Wan and Anakin and Yoda appear. And Anakin just has a big smile on his face, and he sees his son Luke, and he sees his daughter Leia, and he's at peace. and he finally transitions into the Force.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, Sebastian Shaw being Anakin in the end made way more sense because he would have been his age, but without the burns.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know how he got young.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
meanwhile, poor Obi-Wan standing here like, oh,
Yeah, look
my
at her.
back.
Look.
And Yoda's 900, dude.
Yeah.
Dude, if dude's back was sore, he just can't walk by now.
Yeah, no one's going to catch up to Yoda's age. Yeah. That's a very controversial move that George Lucas decided to do, was to replace the actor Sebastian Shaw, who originally played Anakin in Return of the Jedi, with Hayden Christensen, who is very young, right? And not this, the age gap between Obi-Wan and Anakin was what, 10 years, you think? Like maybe yeah.
And now Obi-Wan's like 30 years older than him.
Right, yeah, it just didn't look right as far as the age gap. But George Lucas made that decision. It's canon now, and that's all we can do. So
it's canonical.
Yes, it is canon. So yeah, but that was a great moment. Wonderful ending to that film, and then knowing what Anakin had to go through to actually be at peace with himself, and having Obi-Wan help him to get to that transition period, and then he's wearing a Jedi robe, right, which was unexpected, and he's again looking at his family and looking at the celebration, so what he did was not in vain. Okay.
All right.
So before we get to the number one story, all right, let's do a recap of what we have. All right. So number 10 was Everyone's a Critic by Sarah Gen Marsh. Number 9 was Reputation by Tara Sim. Number 8, Return of the Wills by Tom Engelberger. Number 7, No Contingency for Fran Wild. Number 6, My Mouth Never Closes by Jane Anders. Number 5, From a Certain Point of View by Alex Jennings. Number 4, Kickback by Kay Alcinant Rivera. Number 3, Fantasy Man by Phil Sostak. Number 2, The Brotherhood by Mike Chen.
And now, finally,
our number one story of Return of the Jedi from a certain point of view is
The Ballad of Nanta by Sarah Kuhn.
Yeah.
So, Nanta is offered the role of storykeeper. He's an Ewok, by the way, who is responsible for recording the legendary Ewok tales that are passed down to generations. He gladly takes on this important assignment until one day he becomes part of one of the greatest stories ever told.
Okay, now if you've seen the film, you know who we're talking about. Once again, what I enjoy about these stories, all the stories, is when they can take a very insignificant character,
and make them insignificant, but with the backstory. I'm kidding. They make these background characters significant.
Yes.
Give them stories, drives, motives.
Yes, exactly. Right. Yes, it's very powerful, and in our opinion, that this was the most powerful story in the entire book. All right. So Nanta, again, you mentioned, is an Ewok. He's very curious. Young. I don't know how old Nanta is, but he is a very
precocious young boy.
Yes, very, very curious, and has questions about everything, the meaning of life. What does this mean? What does that mean? Who are we? Why are we here?
Who are you?
Yeah, he asks a lot of questions. And what he does in his spare time is he likes to write poetry, right? So he would go to the trees in the forest of Endor, and he would just lead poetry. One of the elders came up to him and say, "Hey, would you be interested in becoming our new story keeper?" And Nanta, story keeper, what's a story keeper? Well, these stories, of these fellow Ewok, we have done some great things over the years. We need somebody to keep record of what we've done in the past.
And he says, "Heck yeah, my dude, I will do it."
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that piqued Nanta's interest, and he said yes, he would do it, and that's what he does. And he starts going around and he's recording events and stories, and keeping a historical record of what is happening with his people, the Ewoks. Now, he befriends another Ewok called Rumba, who is a soldier.
Yeah, he's also a vacuum cleaner. That was corny.
Okay. Rumba. He is a soldier. Actually, he's preparing for the Battle of Endor. So, of course, the story. We know why there is a battle of Endor. The rebels are there. The rebels need help to help defeat the Empire. The Ewoks decide to bring the rebels in as part of their tribe, and that they are going to fight the Imperials together. All right, so Rumba is one of these soldiers preparing for the battle. All right, and now, so Nanta decides that he's going to follow Rumba in the battle so that he could see everything happening firsthand. Like he's experiencing war right there, and he's documenting everything that's happening, and the battles that are going on, and the stormtroopers and the rebellion are there, and so the two of them are going around, and everything's happening around them. There's explosions going off, and you got the ATST, and then all of a sudden things go horribly wrong for the two of them, where Nanta, who at one point was armed, got very scared and dropped his weapons, and then they knew that they were outmatched by the Empire and started running. Okay, and as they're running, there's an explosion, from one of these scout machines,
ATSTs?
Yeah, the scout troopers,
chicken walkers.
Yeah, the chicken walkers, and they both fall to the ground. If you've seen the film, you know what I'm talking about. So the two of them fall to the ground. One of them gets up, the other one does not.
No.
Right. And then, so the one that gets up is Rumba. All right. And he's trying to awake Nanta, and he doesn't succeed. So Nanta was actually lost his life for doing something that he loved to do. And in honor of Nanta being the story keeper, his people, the Ewoks, create a song about Nanta called the Ballad of Nanta, which is the name of our story. And at the end, where you're seeing the celebration taking place with the rebels and the Ewoks, the song, well, I can't say if it's Num Nub, Yum Nub, or some other song that was playing. Yeah, there was a song that was written in honor of Nanta, the Ballad of Nanta. So that is our number one story of Return of the Jedi. 40 years, 40 stories. Yeah, from a certain point of view. Wonderful. Wonderful story. So that's it. That's our top 10. Anything that you want to add?
Yeah, just one very insightful comment. No!
Okay. All right. Yes. So congratulations to. Hey, look, these are, we're not giving out awards, obviously, and we're just, two podcasters. Our opinions don't matter to anybody else. But here on Father Son Galaxy, congratulations to Sarah Kuhn for writing the Ballad of Nanta. All right. So wonderful, wonderful story. So that is it, everyone. So we finally got through. We've been trying to put this together for so long. But this is the book. If you haven't read it, if you haven't listened to the audio book, we highly recommend it. Return to Jedi, 40 stories, 40 years. Return to Jedi, a certain point of view. Thank you so much for watching and listening to this podcast.
I think my personal favorite was Trooper Trouble. I mean, who doesn't love a stormtrooper who drinks way too much coffee and loves to complain?
Yeah, right. Troopers don't complain. Yeah.
They do now.
Yeah. So it was, it was very difficult to come up with the 10, but we did it, and we're excited. All right. So, Keith, you're going to be okay, right? All right.
I'm going to be fine.
Yes. Where can people find us?
You can find us wherever you get your podcasts, socials, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at Father Son Galaxy, website fathersongalaxy.com. Please check out our merch store, fathersongalaxy.myspreadshop.com, and donate to our Patreon page, patreon.com/fathersongalaxy.
All right. So that is it, everyone. So that is our top 10. Leave a comment, all right? Tell us if you read the book.
Let us know.
Which story is your favorite? Let's have a discussion, all right? If you disagree with our top 10 and you have your own top 10, let's talk about it, okay? I can't wait to hear, all right? So thank you once again for listening and watching us. Until next time, take care,
and we will see you again.